So in football, there's kind of this mantra. It's like law when you're on a football team, because there's so many guys on a football team and so many different types of positions and types of guys. It says, know your role, accept your role, and be the best at your role. And my wife and I were just joined the ship this morning. Part of that was because I guess we're blessed to have 8 children, and we'd moved all around the country. And then our parents, we're both from there. Our parents, the grandparents are there. And they said, we want you to move home. We want you to move home. And we moved home almost 3 years ago. And when you have 8 kids, grandparents don't help you watch your kids anymore. There's too many. So we couldn't find a babysitter. So we got on the boat this morning, and it became really apparent to me what my role was as soon as I got on board here. I know part of it is because I'm here because I'm a former football player. So I was here, the guys that were kind of on the fence about coming, but they were like, oh, me like football. And, I'll go, okay, hon, to get them to come on to the Good News Marriage Cruise. I think that was first. Okay? I think number 2, my role is all week you've been listening to great speakers. Teresa, who you've heard twice now. Dr. Ray, Father John, Father Joe, the Crestas. So, you guys, your cup is just overflowing. You've heard so much wisdom, you can't take on anymore. So that's why they brought me here. To really dumb it down, because we're going to put everything into football terms, because there's 2 things that have really, I think 2 things, not talking about people or books, but 2 things that have formed me. And one would be my Catholic faith, and 2 would be playing football. That's what I am, okay? So that's why I think I'm here. Now, wasn't it a lot of fun to tell people that you were going on a marriage cruise? I found that incredibly entertaining, because they'd be like, what do you do? Oh, I'm going on a marriage cruise. And they'd be like, is everything all right? And I'd say, oh, yeah, everything's fine. I'm speaking on the cruise. I'm fine. No, just to tell you, I wouldn't say that, but it was fun to say, right? Because we're all just everything's just supposed to be fine. When people say, how you doing? Everything's fine. How's your wife? Oh, great, super, fantastic, right? Let me tell you a story, okay? Okay, I'm speaking on the marriage cruise. So Sunday, my wife says, you have my passport, right? I said, no, I have many jobs. One of them is to keep track of the passports. I said, yes, I have your passport. It's in the spot where all the passports are, okay? Don't worry, I cleared this story before I got clearance here. So that was Sunday. So then Tuesday she goes, you have my passport, right? I said, yes, I have it. It's right here where the passports go. And I opened the drawer, and there was my passport, and there were the kids' passports, and her passport wasn't there. Now I said, are you sure you gave me your passport after the last trip? Over Christmas, she went to Florida, thought there was this new law going into effect where driver's license were no good, where you needed a passport. She just took her passport. I said, are you sure you gave me your passport back? Yes, I'm sure. So now I'm looking for it. It's Tuesday. We're getting on the plane Wednesday to fly down here. She says, we're looking for, she goes, why didn't you check when I asked you on Sunday? Why didn't you check? I said, well, because I know if I have your passport, it's where the passports are supposed to be. And it's not there, which means I don't have it. But okay, so I'm looking all over. She goes, you know what? It's fine. It's good. You know what? It's probably best that I don't go. The kids need me to stay home. I said, yeah, that would be great. Me to show up on a marriage cruise without my wife. That's really sound thinking, right? Okay? Turns out her passport was in her bag from last trip. And guys, you know what? It's all my fault. I totally get it, right? We all totally get it. We get it. It's good to see so many people here because marriage is important. It's important. And we'd all like to think that marriage is, I studied economics in Harvard. I looked at a lot of graphs. I wasn't a great economics student, but I knew this. When you looked at graphs, if things were going up and to the right, that was good, right? And we'd like to think our marriages and our lives that we go up and to the right sort of on this 45-degree angle, right? That's not the case. That's not the case. When marriage is going great, it's the best, right? I mean, when my marriage is going good, it makes me feel dizzy like I've been drinking Jack and Cokes all morning, right? And when it's not going so good, it feels like a hair shirt. You guys know what hair shirts are? Yeah. Yeah, I actually looked it up. They actually do sell hair shirts on Amazon in case anybody was interested, right? But that's the point. That's the point. That's where God is. That's where God is in our marriage. In fact, I would say that if you're, and we all have this, at times when you just feel like you're going through the motions or you're not on fire in your marriage, that's God's invitation for you to go deeper, to lean in and go deeper. right? It's like a friend of mine told me who got blindsided by a divorce. He said, let me tell you something. He said, you make sure your marriage is right, because if that relationship isn't right, nothing else matters. Do we treat our marriages, do we act like that? That it's that important? That if it's not good, nothing else matters in our lives? I don't do that every day. I don't do that every day. And marriage is hard. And why is it hard? I'll just tell you my story, and I think I'm assuming some of you are in the same boat, right? We don't understand what marriage is. We do now, and after the homily, we certainly do, right? We understand that now. But our culture, our society doesn't understand, the secular definition of marriage. They don't understand what it is, right? We get this idea of, right, it's more of a transaction, right? It's like, well, I'm going to get a job and get married and have 2 kids, 2.5 kids, and minivan and the picket fence. I mean, the minivan should be a tip that it's a deke, right? It's minivan. We had a minivan once. It's not all it's cracked up to be, right? But it's more of this transaction, like it's an arrangement, like it's for me, like, and that's what our society tells us, right? That it's all about you, and if it feels good, do it, and your needs need to be met, right? I agree, Father. I was going to say this too. Pre-Cana, I don't know. I can't remember anything. It was because nothing was wrong. Everything was great, right? It was like a Disney movie. We're going to get married and live happily ever after. There was never going to be any problem. We weren't ever going to fight. What are you talking about, right? The one thing I wish they would have told me in pre-Cana, though, don't get a dog. Am I right? You get married, yeah. You get married and you're like, well, okay, let's get a dog, right? Because you think like that's how you're supposed to start out, is get a dog. And then you start having kids and you're like, I don't need this dog anymore. The last thing I need in my life is something else that poops. I don't want this dog. But you can't get rid of the dog. We have 2 dogs. Just won't die. Right? But we don't understand. We don't understand what God's plan for marriage is. I didn't. I was young, making money, wanted to find me a smoking hot wife. I did, right? I know I'm not much to look at, and back then I was 320 pounds, but I was rich, so it worked out. She's cleared all the jokes, okay, so don't feel bad. I'm not, most of them at least, most of them. But it's important, right? We don't get it. And so as we go, there's ups and there's downs, right? There's good days, bad days. There might be good weeks, good years, bad years, strikes and gutters, right? But that's the whole point. That's the whole point, because at the end of the day, we are each other's path to holiness, right? Before we came out of the womb, God had us linked together, created us for each other. And our job is to get each other to heaven. That's what God wants from each of us. So the greatest thing to me about the Catholic faith, I mean, there's a lot of great things. Maybe the greatest would be overstating it. But it's like the ultimate life hack. It really is. It's got all the answers. It's got all the answers. All we have to do is follow it, right? So our faith tells us who we are. Right? We know who we are. We're children of God, and we know why we're here, to know, to love, and to serve God. And our vocation, each of us, each and every one of us in this room, with the exception of fathers, is married life, And so that's our vocation. That's how we live out our faith. Our job is to get our wife or our husband and our kids to heaven. And it's always important to remember who you are. Back in 2012, I was playing for the Baltimore Ravens. By the way, people probably got confused. We said I was a former Minnesota Viking and Super Bowl champion. Those 2 things don't collide often in the same sentence. I actually played for the Baltimore Ravens in 2012. And going into December, we were 9-2. We were the number 1 seed in the AFC. And all the experts, all those smart people on TV were talking about how this was our year. We're the number 1 seed. And then part of that, too, was they were picking us because they're just always looking for somebody else other than the Patriots, right? I mean, we can all agree. I mean, we all like different teams, but we all dislike the Patriots, right? Yeah, okay, good, good, good. Good. We're all in agreement, 100%. Great, thank you. Okay, no, you? Okay. Yeah, all right, good. So, the thing we had about the Ravens and why I went to Baltimore, I actually went to Baltimore after an 11-year career in Minnesota was I sat down with this guy, John Harbaugh, great Catholic man, and he told me, he said, you know what, we keep it real simple here. Simple, football players, we like simple. He goes, we've got this thing, it's called play like a Raven. He said, all it means is that you play, we're going to be three things. We're going to be smart. I mean, football smart means like, know where to line up, know what to do. Fast, I mean, don't overthink it when you're out there. Be decisive and be aggressive. Thinking, not our strong suit. Smart, fast, and physical. He said, those are the three things. Non-negotiables. He said, every time we turn on the film and watch film and evaluate our play individually as a team, it's going to be those three things. We say, are we playing like Ravens? Okay? So we were 9-2, and everyone's telling us how good we are and how we're going to go to the Super Bowl. And everybody knows, because everybody's an expert in football, right? Trust me, I know everybody's an expert in football, okay? Right? So the best teams start playing their best football in December. They start to ascend and kind of separate themselves from the rest of the league. So first game in December, we had our hated rival, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Am I speaking too fast for you? Would you like me to slow down a little bit? You're good? Okay. All right. Our hated rival, the Pittsburgh Steelers, coming into our place to play us in our stadium, where we had the best home record over the last 10 years of any team in the NFL. And it was on national TV, which guys get really excited for, too. And their starting quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger, was out with an injury. So this looks pretty good. We had already beat them in Pittsburgh earlier in the year. Well, we didn't really play our best game. We let them hang around. And at the end of the game, their backup quarterback led them down the field. They kicked a field goal, and they beat us. Okay? Sometimes you don't always play your best. Let one slip away. The next week, we had to go down to Washington to play the Redskins, just right down the road. And the Redskins are never good. They're never good. They haven't been good in like 30 years, right? But that year, they were good. They had this new quarterback. His name was Robert Griffin III. He was kind of lighting the league on fire and offensive rookie of the year. And so we were thinking, though, we're the Ravens. Like some rookie quarterback is going to beat us. Like, look at this defense. We got Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and Terrell Suggs and like all these other guys you wouldn't want your daughter to date. Like, it's a bunch of bad dudes here, Like, we're not rookie quarterbacks. So we drove down to Washington, and not me, but we knocked Robert Griffin III out of the game. Their best player knocked out, which is very unfortunate. But let me just say, you're always curious to know, how good's the backup quarterback? Well, they trotted out another rookie quarterback onto the field to replace Robert Griffin. His name was Kirk Cousins. Yeah. Now, Kirk Cousins signed the highest guaranteed contract in the history of the NFL. 3 years, $84 million guaranteed. That was not the Kirk Cousins that ran out on the field that day. This Kirk Cousins, there were two things that struck me about him, the other rookie. One, he was wearing glasses underneath his helmet. Nobody wears glasses underneath their helmet anymore. That's not a very tough look, okay? I'm just saying. And number two is he had the smallest arms of anybody I'd ever seen in my life. I'm serious. I turned to my buddy. I said, if I get something stuck in my teeth, I'm going to borrow his arm. That's what I said. That's the truth. And I was like, this guy is going to get killed. He's going to get killed. Like, keep the stretcher warm because he's going. Well, end of the game, he leads them down the field. They score a touchdown. They have to go for two, which they do, and they get it to tie us. And then, in overtime, he goes down the field, and they kick a field goal, and they beat us. So now we're 9-4. So we did what any Super Bowl-bound team would do. We fired our offensive coordinator in the middle of December. Like, that doesn't reek of desperation, okay? Second most important coach, get rid of him. And it's not like you have time to conduct a search. No, we've got a game in 6 days. Like, so we fired him, here's the new coach, here we go, right? We're 9-4, now people are saying, no, I don't know, let's see about these Ravens. And we had the Denver Broncos coming into our place to play us the next week. And now people were saying, well, maybe Denver's the best team. right? They had won a bunch of games in a row. They had a new quarterback that year. I always forget his name. It's a hard guy to remember. John Elway. No, I'm not that old, but thanks. Peyton Manning, that's it. Peyton Manning. Gosh, kind of an unforgettable career. So we were like, listen, this is ridiculous. Denver's got to fly all the way across the country to play us in our stadium where we never lose, except 2 weeks before. And we're ornery, and we need this game, and enough's enough. Well, at one point during that game, it was 35-0. We were not winning. So now we're 9-5, and all those experts who were on TV and radio and whatever who were saying 3 weeks ago we're the best team, we're saying this is a collapse of historic proportions. The Ravens are going to lose their next 2 games. They're going to miss the playoffs. Nobody's ever gone from first to out. I mean, this is historic. They're terrible. Clean house, start with the center, all that stuff, okay? So we're out at practice on Monday, and it's kind of quiet because everyone's kind of thinking, what the heck is going on here? And John Harbaugh, our coach, comes up to me and he says, hey, I want you to, after practice today, I want you to talk to the team. Just share whatever's on your mind, on your heart. And then he walked away, and I was like, why me? I'm not really a talker. Ray Lewis gives all the talks. Have him talk again, right? So all practice, I'm not thinking about what we're doing. I'm thinking, what am I going to say to my teammates? And after practice, John says, all right, Matt's going to talk to us. And that was about the extent. It wasn't a rousing introduction like you gave me, Father Joe. And so I got up there, and I'm looking around. You got to understand, like on a football team, you spend so much time together. I mean, it's like more time than with your spouse, right? During the season, 6 months, you're in the locker room together, you're on the practice field together, you're in the cafeteria together, you lift weights together, you travel together, you stay in hotels together, you even shower together, for crying out loud. Like you're not hiding anything, you're not BSing anybody, your teammates. And I'm looking around, and we got all these great players, guys that went to USC and Alabama and the Ohio State. And, just threw up in my mouth. And I said, I'm going to tell these guys something they don't know anything about. I'm going to tell them about Harvard football. So I was like, hey, guys, I played football at Harvard. And one guy was like, Harvard has a football team? I was like, yeah, man, we got uniforms and everything. It's great, dude. It's great. Oh, but I said, so my first day at Harvard, I told him we had a new coach, a new young coach. He was all fired up. He was going to change the culture. So the first day we get there, the first thing we do as a football team is he says, the first thing I'm going to teach you guys, we're going to learn the Harvard fight song. Because after every game we win, we're going to sing the Harvard fight song, and we're going to win a lot of games, and we're going to sing a lot of songs. And the Harvard fight song is in Latin. Of course it is, right? So 120 college guys singing a song in a dead language. It doesn't sound too good, okay? But after a couple times through, one of the guys raises his hand, and the head coach is, look at this young guy. I mean, he's feeling it. Yeah, he's kind of taken aback that this guy raised his hand. He says, what? He says, Coach, the last line of this song, ipso facto, what does it mean? And the coach says, you want to know what it means? It's like, well, yeah. Yes, please. I'll tell you what it means. It means, don't let the bastards get you down. Now, this was in 1994. Google wasn't really a thing. But we knew that's not what it meant. We knew that's not what it meant. So first, honestly, obviously, you don't have to gone to Harvard to coach at Harvard, number one. But number two, but that's what I told these guys. I said, who cares if the people think we're good, we're bad, we're ugly? It doesn't matter. I said, all we got to do, the reason why we've lost 3 games in a row is because we got away from being us. We're the Ravens. We're not the Patriots. We're not the Broncos. We don't throw the ball around the field and, look all good and, get $100 haircuts like Tom Brady. That's not us. The Ravens, if you follow football, know that there's an identity with that team, with that organization. There always has been, right? We call ourselves the team that nobody wants to play. Our whole thing was when teams wake up Monday morning, we want to make sure they're a little bit more sore than usual, that they know that they played the Ravens. You know, we'll just do that, and we'll look up at the end of the game and check out the score and see if we won or not. I said, we got to start thinking about, Super Bowl and this and that. We started thinking about the destination. I said, we just got to get back to being us. So ipso facto, right? And we went out that week, and we thumped the defending Super Bowl champion New York Giants, and then went on a historic Super Bowl run, and it was all because of my speech. Obviously, no. Yeah, obviously. No, it's funny because it kind of became a thing. We'd score a touchdown and come off the field. Hey, ipso facto, Flacco would throw a pick. Hey, Joe, it's okay. Ipso facto. Sorry, man, whatever, right? But it was just getting back to who we were, right? If we understand, if we remember who we are, that we're children of God, that's who we are. That we're placed here for a very specific purpose, right? Not to be the number one insurance salesman or a football player or whatever that is, right? That our purpose here on earth starts with being the spouse that God has called us to be. That's what we need to stay focused on. Because it's very easy to lose focus. I put myself at the top of the list. But remember who you are and why you're here. Now, that sounds good, but let me say this. So in 1998, I was drafted in the 6th round by the Minnesota Vikings, and that was a big thrill for me because I grew up a Vikings fan. Back when I grew up, you only got one game. That was our game. And my dad and brothers, we'd huddle around the little TV every Sunday and watch the Vikings. Huge Vikings fan. And here I was, drafted by that team, and it was April of that year, and I was ready to walk into the locker room for the first time as a member of the team. 4 months earlier, I'm in my dorm room cheering this team on and, throwing stuff at the TV at the end of the year. That's how all Vikings seasons end. And now I'm walking in as a member of the team. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. And so I open the doors to the locker room, and right when I open, the first 4 guys I see right there, John Randall is in the Hall of Fame, Chris Carter, Hall of Fame, Randall McDaniel, Hall of Fame, and Jeff Christie, who's our starting center, who's not in the Hall of Fame, but he was just making Pro Bowls every year. So the first thing that went through my head was, what's the policy on asking for autographs? So I was a huge fan, but I was like, play it cool. So I walked by him, I was like, hey, what's up? And then I'm looking for my locker. I'm like, where's my locker? I found my locker. Nameplate over the top of it, jersey, cleats, socks, helmet, everything. It was unbelievable. And inside my locker on the stool was a playbook, right? 1998, didn't have iPads. Playbook, and like an NFL playbook, it's about as thick as the old phone books they used to drop on your steps or in your driveway back in the day, right? It was like this thick. I mean, that's the offensive playbook. Defensive playbook, there's only one page. Oh, it's true. It's just a picture of the football and it says, go get it, boys. That's all you have to know to play defense, right? But I was like, great, there's a book. I didn't really know that much about football. All I knew was this. I want this to happen, right? I'm just thinking in my head, I'm gonna play here for 10 years and make a lot of money and blah, blah, because this was way better than the other job I had lined up out of college, okay? Kind of like you walk into marriage, right? You just, hey, this is gonna be great. I'm in love, it's gonna be great. We're gonna have a great life together, just because I want it to happen. So I want it to happen. I was like, great, there's a book. I know how to study a little bit, probably more so than some of these guys. That's great, I'll take the book, go to the meeting, let's go. Well, I went to the meeting, and when I say 1998, Minnesota Vikings fans, you hang your heads a little bit because that ended up being the most prolific offense in the history of the NFL that year. We went 15-1 and did not go to the Super Bowl. But I say that because when I went to that first meeting, it wasn't like we were starting on page 1 of this playbook. These guys didn't even open up the playbook. We had Brad Johnson and Robert Smith and Chris Carter and a new guy that year. His name was Randy Moss. And I mean, they knew they were really good. I didn't know anything. They knew they were really good, so they were like inventing offense right there on on the whiteboard, not opening up the book. And I sat in the meeting for 2 hours and didn't learn anything. Great. So, but it didn't matter because I just really wanted this to happen. I just felt good. This feels right. So went out onto the field, practicing a little bit. It kind of felt like I was in a fantasy camp, to tell you the truth. It was pretty cool. And then we got into a scrimmage situation where the offense goes against the defense, right? And they had the first string offense against the first string defense. And I remember sitting there watching these guys for a few plays, and I thought, man, these guys are really good. We didn't have athletes like that in the Ivy League. Nobody from Columbia was that fast, right? So just kind of in awe. Like, you know, when you see like greatness, you're like, whoa. And then my coach turns to me, he's like, all right, get in there. I was like, oh yeah. So I run into the huddle, and I was hyperventilating a little bit. And I just thought to myself, I hope, when you go to a football, it's like a whole new language. Every team you go to, it's like they have their own language. It's somewhat similar, but so you don't really know anything. And I was just thinking, I hope when the quarterback calls the play, I hope I know whether it's a run or a pass. That's really all I was concerned with, because I don't have to ask the guy next to me. And Brad Johnson, the starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, stepped in the huddle, and and I was like, whoa, this is cool. I'm in the huddle with Brad Johnson. It's like, wait till I tell my buddies I'm in the huddle with Brad Johnson. And he called the play, and I knew it was a pass. And I was like, awesome. Broke the huddle, went up to the line of scrimmage. There's John Randall in front of me. Now, John Randall, at the time, was the best defensive lineman in the NFL. I was thinking, this is perfect. This is exactly what I want. My first play in the NFL to go against John Randall. No, it's true, because I'd only been there a few hours, but all the guys, they're already making fun of me. One, because I was the new guy. Second, because I was local. Third, because I was kind of dorky. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to lock John Randall down. And all these guys are going to stop making fun of me. Right? Well, as an offensive lineman, when you pass block a defensive lineman, you want to punch him in his chest. You want to punch him in his chest to stop his forward momentum, and then you want to grab onto him. Right? You don't want to hold onto him. You want to grab onto him. Sounds very nuanced, but there's like 10 yards of difference in there, okay? Right? Well, I wasn't going to just punch John Randall in his chest. Huh? I got to make a statement here. I got to prove that I belong. I was going to punch John Randall so hard that my hands were going to go through his chest and come out his back. That was my plan. So I'm down in my stance. I'm feeling good. The ball is snapped. I came out, and I punched as hard as I could. But I closed my eyes. Because I was really scared. John Randall is a bad man. He's a bad man. He used to paint his face black. He barks like a dog. He's crazy. The guy is like mentally unstable. It's like I punched as hard as I could, and I closed my eyes, and I didn't feel anything. And that's a really bad feeling for an offensive lineman. Really bad. Because your job is essentially get in that guy's way. That's essentially the job description. Well, I opened my eyes, and John was no longer there. He was here on his way to the quarterback. So this went from being the greatest play in the history of the NFL to a lookout block. Look out! So Brad dropped back, and John was in there pretty quick, quicker than normal, superhumanly quick, and so in practice, obviously you don't tackle the quarterback, you don't even touch him. If you're John, just supposed to run by him, everybody sees that John, you won, and then let the play develop though, because there's 20 other guys out here. We're practicing, we're trying to get better. Well, John, just for fun, as he ran by Brad, gave him a big old love smack right on the hip, buttocks area, and it was like a big whoop, and it sounded like it hurt. And judging by Brad's reaction, it did hurt, because he let out a yelp and kind of broke his concentration. He just took the ball and he just threw it in the ground. He walked away, cussing under his breath, which Brad never cussed. And John was back there laughing. He's going, ha, 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 ha. The coaches were yelling and screaming at me because I had just been responsible. I mean, that's like We just wasted a rep in practice. We wasted a rep. That, in football terms, that's a mortal sin. You can't waste reps. Like, how are we ever? I mean, this is the worst thing ever possible. So the coaches are yelling and screaming at me, and I'm just thinking to myself, well, thank God I got my degree. Because I can't do this. I can't, there's no way. I can't do this. I mean, before that play, I was like, 10-year career, here we come. After that play, I was like, there's no way. I can't do it. Well, I hung in there and did whatever I could do, and walking off the field after practice, and my coach comes over to me. He's like, so how do you think it went out there today? I was like, it was okay. He said, no, it wasn't. He's from New York, so he's very direct. I said, well, I did some good things. And he's like, well, no, you didn't. He said, look, you're not good enough to play tackle in the NFL. Tackle are the guys on the outside where those are really good guys. I was like, okay, it's only been one practice. Kind of a quick judgment, but okay. He said, you're not good enough to play guard either. And I was like, you didn't even try me at guard. He's like, your only chance is to play center. Okay. He's like, have you ever played center before? I was like, no. Don't think it's going to work out, but let's give it a try. He goes, all right, well, the first thing this afternoon, be out here 5 minutes before practice starts, and quarterbacks will meet you out here. You got to learn how to snap the football. So I was like, all right. So I'm out there like 20 minutes early, right, trying to positive self-talk and, come on, you can do this, you can do this. And 5 minutes before practice, here come the quarterbacks. There's Brad Johnson. It's like, oh, I wonder if Brad remembers what happened this morning, It's like, hey, Brad. And Brad was like, hey. I was like, oh, man, Brad hates me. We had Randall Cunningham on that team. Randall Cunningham was my 5th grade fantasy football quarterback. I was like, gosh, we got just like a bunch of all-stars. And for 5 minutes, all we did was practice snapping the football. Okay? I mean, you just bend over, put your hand on the ball. Quarterback puts his hands underneath you. It takes a little getting used to. After 15 years, I never quite got used to it. And you just practice snapping the football. Now, chances are, if you've watched football, either in person or on TV, you've never hit the person next to you and say, oh my gosh, did you see how the center snapped the ball? That's perfect. How does he do that? It never makes the top 10 plays, right? No. The only time you notice the snap is when? Yeah, when it's on the ground or over his head, and it's always the center's fault. Never the quarterback's fault. Ever, all right? Maybe they could take a little accountability sometime. But that day, and every single day for 15 years, I went out 5 minutes before practice and practiced snapping the football. Why? Because it's that important, right? That important. Later on that year, we're in training camp where things are a little more intense. It's in August, and you're wearing pads, and things are ratcheted up a notch, and John was lined up at nose tackle, and he beat me to the right, and he beat me to the left, and he ran me over. And I didn't block John for 2 years, but at the time I'm thinking, this guy, he's all in my head, and I'm thinking about him, and I put a couple snaps on the ground, and our head coach, Denny Green, called me over. He goes, Matt, your number one job as a center is get the ball to the quarterback. He said, I don't care if you don't block anybody. Just make sure, if you don't get him the ball, we don't have a play. So I'm not really blocking anybody right now. So I guess the least I could do would be to get the ball to the quarterback, right? Every single day for 15 years, went out and did that. And how go ahead. So we do that, and then practice would officially start, okay? And then they send the linemen down into the corner. We get the corner. It's barely any grass down there. And we get these things called chutes, okay? A chute, think of it as like a big rectangular box, no sides, just like a frame. Okay? And what you do is you get in your stance in the chute, and you come out of your stance, and you have to stay low while you're in the chute. If you rise up, you hit your head on one of the metal bars, and it hurts a little bit. I know, right? Hurts a little bit. You learn quick. It makes a loud noise, and everybody makes fun of you. But it teaches you to stay low because leverage is everything in offensive line play. It's everything. We see low man wins. I know if I played quarterback, this would be a much more interesting talk, okay? But I'm telling you, this is the life of a lineman. I can't tell you how many times over the years people come and be like, oh my gosh, you play for the Vikings? That's awesome. I'm like, do you know what a center does? Huh? I bend over, a guy puts his hands underneath me. There's a guy who weighs 350 pounds. He's this far from my face. He's got a nickname. It's like Bubba or Hammer, or Big Daddy, And they call him a nose tackle. That's so inappropriately named. The guy never makes a tackle. His whole point of existence is to just destroy the center every play. Yeah, it's awesome. I love playing football. We get in the chutes, okay? Teach you to stay low. And then we'd get out these 10-foot-long boards, okay? They're 10 foot long. They're 1 foot wide. They're boards. We put the boards in the chutes, okay? And you straddle the boards. It teaches you to keep your feet apart, right? Because if you get your feet together, that's when you get knocked over. Trust me, that's what happens when you get your feet together on the football field, okay? Every single day, snap the football in the chutes, come out on the boards. I'm pretty sure the NFL is like the highest level, right? Is there a super NFL or something like that? Maybe the XFL. Maybe Vince McMahon's got some stuff up his sleeve. I don't know, right? But this is the highest level. I'll guarantee you, every college, the centers are snapping early. Every high school, the linemen are going in the chutes. Why? Because the fundamentals never change. What changes is the attention that we pay to them, right? It's kind of human nature to say, I know that, I got that, what's next? No, that's all there is. For me as a football player, that's all there was, right? After that first day when I whiffed on John and I realized I can't do this by myself, I made it like my purpose as a football player to master those drills. And we did them every single day. So fast forward 15 years to my last day in the NFL. It was the Super Bowl. So we went up to New England in the AFC Championship game and thumped the Patriots. Thumped them. I mean, I hate to say it, if they're confession tomorrow, but there was nothing more satisfying than seeing Bill Belichick and Tom Brady pout as they walked off the field. I'm embarrassed to say how much joy that gave me. So we thumped the Patriots, so now we got 2 weeks before the Super Bowl, and we come into work Monday morning, and our offensive coordinator, who is new to the job, says, hey, guys, great job. Just so you know, first play we're going to run in the Super Bowl is dot right 40 gut. There were two things interesting about this. One, they never told us the first play until the night before the game. And secondly, dot right 40 gut is like the most basic running play you have. Every team runs dot right 40 gut. I coach grade school football. We have dot right 40 gut. It's just the lineman steps to the right, blocks the guy in his gap. The running back steps to the right, gets the ball. So we're thinking like, this is the Super Bowl. Did you guys stay up all night thinking about dot right 40 gut? Well, whatever. So, players play, coaches coach. So all week, every time we're practicing, we're running first play of every period that we run, dot right 40 gut, dot right 40 gut. So we practiced all week in Baltimore. We fly to New Orleans for the second week, just hoping nobody gets arrested, everybody shows up on time, which we do to the Super Bowl. Really long pregame. It's national anthem and God Bless America, and there's a flyover and all this, and then finally the ball's kicked off. We run out onto the field. The official's like, nope, hold up, TV timeout. We're like, oh my gosh, how much money do they need to make? We just want to play. Finally, the ref's like, all right, let's go. And our quarterback, Joe Flacco, steps in the huddle and he says, kind of laughs, and he says, guys, you already know the play on one. And we went up and we ran dot right 40 gut. And it was a pretty unspectacular play. Gain of 2, maybe 3 yards. My guy made the tackle. Nose tackle, made the tackle. But here's the point. If we'd had a drone over the field videoing that play, and you were to have that video, and you were to run it back, and before you push play, if you were to remove all the people from the stands, and all the players and coaches on the sidelines, and all the other players on the field, and you just had me left, and you'd run that video, you know what you saw me doing? I was snapping the football. I was in the chutes. I was coming out on the boards. All I was doing was trying to execute the fundamentals that I'd spent every single day for the last 15 years trying to do, right? I didn't go into that game thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to go try to win a Super Bowl. I'm just going to go out there and make it happen. Because one, if I'd have thought that way, I'd have probably been so nervous I wouldn't have been able to leave the locker room, right? But I could focus, I could grasp, I could cling to these fundamentals. Because I knew I couldn't do it. But all I had to do was just focus on these fundamentals and try to do them the best of my ability. People say, what's it like to play in the Super Bowl? I'm like, I don't even really know. Not because I was concussed, because all I was thinking about was just keep executing the fundamentals. And don't worry about what happens next. And what are those fundamentals that we have in marriage? Right? I mean, obviously the 7 keys. I mean, beyond me to try to come up with a more comprehensive list than that. All I will do, because I am a little more experienced in marriage than Father John, all right? So I'll just give you my experience, all right? You take it for what it's worth. No. Number one, prayer, right? So often we do things in the name of God, but we forget to keep him at the center, right? I didn't understand when I got married what marriage was, that God was supposed to be at the center of my marriage. I do now. And in order to do that on a daily basis, you have to pray. You have to pray with your spouse. That is one thing that has transformed our marriage, I think, more than anything else, is to pray at night together. Now, I heard another great priest tell me, he said, pray as you can, not as you can't. I said, that makes me feel really good, because I can't do these long evangelical prayers. Can't do it. I know the Our Father. She knows the Hail Mary. Let's start there. Pray at night. Pray to God that you can be the spouse that he intends you to be. Pray with your spouse. And be grateful for your spouse. Had a powerful interaction a couple months ago with a man who, I knew him when I was in high school. I knew him 25 years ago. He was a father, one of my classmates. And I caught up with him after the fact. And his wife passed away. And I knew a little bit about their family. And I knew that their marriage, like all of ours, had peaks and valleys, maybe a few more valleys. And I said, how you doing? His wife passed away 2 years ago. And he said, Matt, I made a big mistake. He said, I did not wake up every day and thank God for my wife. And now she's gone, right? The thing that I love about the fundamentals in football and these fundamentals about praying is it takes no talent. It takes no talent to do these things, right? It just takes effort, right? Through good times and bad times. And we all know. We have a saying, too, in football. I mean, like I said, when things are going good, when things are good, there's nothing like it, right? There's nothing like it. And when things aren't going so good, it's rough. It's rough. It's bumpy. It's hard. And that's the time when you really have to stick with it. You have to understand that it is always going to get better, right? Because God's behind it. Because it's originated by God. We used to have a saying in football. I mean, if you watch football, right? Every game, it's back and forth, you know? I mean, one team will be doing well for a while, and then the other team comes back. And then unless it's a Bengals game. And it's just pretty much a steamroller, you know? But other than that, right? Other than that, aren't you glad I didn't say the Lions, Father Joe? I could have said the Lions. Have mercy on the Lions fans. Right? But we used to have a saying, hey, when momentum's on your side, go with it. And if it's not, know that pendulum is always swinging back. It's always swinging back your way, right? If you just stick with it. If you just stick with the fundamentals, right? A lot of times in football, when you'd have a bad game or the team would have a bad game, we go out there and it'd be like extra focus on the fundamentals. Cling to those, right? Last fundamental I would talk about that I think is date your spouse. Make time for date night. I read all these blogs and stuff. It says date night once a month. Once a month? How about once a week? Huh? How about once a week? Date my wife once a week. Go out, right? Look at your spouse. Close your eyes for 3 seconds. So look at your spouse and pretend you don't know anything about her or about him, right? Go back. Go back. Life is busy. We get preoccupied. We get off focused, off target, off centered, right? Do that. Do that. Prayer, gratitude, and date. Date your spouse. So the Super Bowl I played in was the one where the lights went out, if you remember that. So that game was going really well. Momentum was on our side for the first half and change. We were up 28-6, and things were pretty good. And then the lights went out, which is they're still trying to get to the bottom of, I think. And when the lights came back on, it was like a totally different story. It was like a totally different game. All of a sudden, we couldn't do anything on offense. We fumbled once. We went 3 and out. We're just terrible. And their offense, the San Francisco 49ers, they were marching up and down the field on us. And it kind of became one of those things where you just kept looking at the clock, just hoping to just run a little bit faster, a little bit faster. Well, 49ers were down 5 points, fourth quarter. They took the ball. They marched the length of the field, and they had first and goal on our 5. And So they got to get a touchdown. So first down, they don't get it. Second down, they don't get it. Third down, they don't get it. And now it's fourth down. And basically, the game is going to be decided by the outcome of this one play. And I couldn't do anything about it. I mean, obviously, I had ownership in what had gone on up to that point, but this pivotal play, I'm just standing there cheering like everybody else, hoping, praying. There was a lot of praying. A lot of praying on our sideline. A lot of guys were saved at that very moment. They were saved. I know it, Father. I could see it. Protestants I'm talking about. And I just thought, man, this is unbelievable, right? All the work, 15 years. It wasn't about me, but I was thinking, I was reflecting on, I guess, me. I was saying, man, I've been doing this for 15 years. I've gotten so close, never been this close, but I've gotten close, and heartbreaking defeats, and wide left, wide right. I mean, it seemed like everything. And I was like, it's been such a struggle. And this is going to decide it, this one play, either success or failure. I was like, this is messed up, right? The football gods. No. And so the 49ers decided to, this is why I love football coaches. You got all these plays and schemes, and when the Super Bowl's on the line, what play do they call? 50-50 ball. They put it on the players, right? They just throw that ball up in the corner of the end zone and let the wide receiver and the DB fight for it. It's 50-50. And that's what they did, and a lot of 49ers fans think it was pass interference. I've reviewed the film, and I think it was a great no call. And the ball fell incomplete, and we won, and we won the Super Bowl, and that's great. But my point is this, is that you win the Super Bowl, everybody thinks, oh my gosh, you must have just everything must have just gone right, it was like kind of smooth sailing. I'm like, quite the opposite. I mean, it's a massive struggle. Every game, every season, a struggle, I mean, you wake up every Monday morning, you're sore as can be. When your foot hits the floor, you're thinking, how the heck, right? It was good plays, bad plays, good quarters, bad quarters, 3-game losing streaks, all those things all compound the one. But in the end, because we stayed true to who we were, we stayed faithful, right, to each other, and believed, and good times, bad times. I believed that it was going to get better, and it worked out in the end. And I think what Father said at the end of the homily was amazing. When his mother said, "Because of you, I know God," and that's a heck of a thing to shoot for. But could you imagine if your spouse doesn't say that about you? Can you imagine the regret that you would feel, right? It's almost like, gosh, in football terms, we used to talk all the time in pregame speeches, and, you hear it all. And you're just so jacked up, you just nod your head and go along with it. But if you sat back and actually analyzed what was being said, you'd be like, what, right? But, saying, we got to win this game. You don't got to win any game. You don't have to win any game. Football's one of the most important, unimportant things. Doesn't really matter, right? But you want to talk about something important, right? That your spouse says that when they close the casket? That's not like I hope so. Like, that has to happen. That has to happen. That's why God put you here. That's it. We all have to accomplish that. So then when we go and we hear those words, well done, my good and faithful servant. Thank you. Thank you very much.